I suffer, you suffer, we all suffer. So, if Earth is a school, here is what I've learned so far. That it fucking sucks when I suffer, and it fucking sucks when I see you suffer. And that I want both my suffering to stop and yours to fucking stop, but it will never, as long as we are still alive in a world like this. The insidiousness of the splendors of sex is to bequeath suffering upon the sentience that is born from it. Therefore, procreation is the presupposition for all that is problematic. There is nothing more disgusting, more disturbing than the stomach of a pregnant woman, because there is no law in nature that prohibits inferior humanity from breeding amongst themselves. Therefore, the only thing I can do, now that I'm already here to suffer, and I'm already here to see all of you suffer, is not to bring more life into the world. So I don't have to spit in the ocean of suffering like everybody else seems to do, that has filled up an ocean so far. Here's the conclusion. I am here, and I am alive. I don't want to be here, nor do I want to be alive. Therefore, I am unqualified to bring life into the world, so they too can grow up and say, I don't want to be here, and I don't want to be alive. And then I say, you and me both, son. I don't want that. I'd rather suffer alone. I would rather not superimpose that on somebody else. They say misery loves company. But this misery right here doesn't want your company. Here's how I rage against the machine. How do you rage against the machine? You're not doing it right. You're doing it wrong. What is there for you here? Pussy? Food? Money? Materialism? Huh. Me, on the other hand, I wouldn't trade my quietude and solitude for a fucking thing. The closest thing to a sort of divine intervention is the miscarriage. Sentience is a form of irritation when matter is the impediment that impinges upon consciousness. Why would the divinity of spirit want to go inside of a flesh that has chronic pain, that has chronic fatigue, emotional disease, and has to work by the sweat of its brow, giving up all of its energy just to have the utilities to take a shit and go to sleep and keep yourself warm and safe from the elements? But then they say that we're here to learn lessons. What do we learn? How to grin and bear it? What do we learn? That obedience by way of authority is a requirement for survival, and as soon as you rebel, you get arrested, you get ostracized, you get fired, you lose your wife, you lose your kids. So what do you learn? To do what you're told and grin and bear it? That's what I've come to find so far. It would have been better never to have been than to have been. School of life. Your brain is better off masturbating to pornography than watching mainstream media. School of life. Your soul is better off worshiping the devil than the God of the Abrahamic religions. I once got fired from a job because I refused to run. The boss man would bark orders, and my colleagues would sprint to the destination per his request, while I followed slow behind. He would thereby yell at me, and my reply was always the same: I don't run. I once went to my girlfriend's house for the first time, and the father dropped a honey biscuit upon the ground. He looked at the biscuit, he looked back up at me. He was expecting me to pick it up, and it was awkward because I didn't. My girlfriend brought it up later in the evening, and I said, I don't pick up biscuits. You see, people, I'm not the kind. I don't run, and I don't pick up biscuits. You know why? It's because when you are a depressive, it's not that you have depression, it is that you are depression. So everything is a innocuous morphology that is de-emotionalized and according only to its definition. That means a woman is just a woman, a man is just a man, and there's no hierarchy of subordination versus subordinator. It is that I am a subject and everything is a meaningless object. And I look at it only according to its word and definition, and there's no emotion attached. If that's how you experience this world, rest assured you're in the right place, my friend. When you feel nothing, all things become nothing. I am an object, you are an object, and your dog licking its own asshole versus the mug on the coffee table versus myself and yourself, to me, there's little to no difference. Just like, yep, I'm here, you're there, that dog's licking its asshole, coffee mug, coffee table, okay, I see. It's an equality of apathy that I extend to all things. And here's the face of depression. Eyes half open, though well caffeinated, resting bitch face. And when you do smile, it's only a kindly gesture due to social custom. Oh, hey, how you doing, Garrett? Oh, hey, how you doing? Yeah. And it takes so much effort just to smile that it's the equivalent of lifting a 30-pound dumbbell every time. And then when you release your smile, it's like dropping the dumbbell on the ground in the gym, and then you kind of get that relief. Because this is the face. And anything other than that is just superfluous. For example, I'm drinking this nitro cold brew. It's about 800 milligrams of caffeine. I'm about halfway done with it. And that gives me just enough artificial energy to make a video. But when the caffeine wears off, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like a sickness with no symptoms. It's like a flu without vomiting or diarrhea. I'm just like fucking sick in the head. That's all it is. I'm just fucking sick in the head. I would like to quote Emile Cioran. Love, a duel of salivas. All the feelings milk their absolute from the misery of the glands. Nobility is only in the negation of existence, in a smile that surveys annihilated landscapes. Once I had a self, now I am no more than an object. I gorge myself on all the drugs of solitude. Those of the world were too weak to make me forget it. Having killed the prophet in me, how could I still have a place among men? Each of us is born with a share of purity, predestined to be corrupted by our commerce with mankind, by that sin against solitude. The idle would be the only ones not to be murderers, but they do not belong to humanity, and, sweat not being their strong point, they live without suffering the consequences of life and of sin, doing neither good nor evil. They disdain, spectators of the human convulsion, the weeks of time, the efforts which suffocate consciousness. I resign from movement and from my dreams. Absence, you shall be my sole glory. Let desire be forever stricken from the dictionary and from the soul. I retreat before the dizzying farce of tomorrows, and if I cling to few hopes, it is that I lose forever the faculty of hoping. What sin have you committed to be born? What a crime to exist! Your suffering, like your fate, is without motive. To suffer, truly to suffer, is to accept the invasion of ills without the excuse of causality, as a favor of demented nature, as a negative miracle. Everything conspires, elements and actions alike, to harm you. Arm yourself in disdain. Isolate yourself in a fortress of disgust. Dream of superhuman indifference. The echoes of time will persecute you for your ultimate absences. Only a pseudo-spiritual masochist would say that Earth is a suffering school for souls so they can learn and grow from it. Okay, if that were true, why is an infant born a blank slate with no frame of reference? If that were true, then why, on a metaphysical level, is the spirit receiving a memory wipe where it's in a complete state of amnesia of its previous incarnations? Huh? Why is a baby being born into a circumstance of trauma and torture and abuse, and you guys are saying, well, he must have did something in a past life to deserve it? Why don't you say it to his fucking face, huh? Why don't you tell a crying little girl, age 7, why she was born into a family where she is beaten by her mother and her father, and say it was because she did something in a previous incarnation and she's being punished for something that she can't even remember? Why don't you say it to her fucking face, huh? You people make me sick. I'm sick of you people who say this type of bullshit. There is no growth to be learned through suffering other than what suffering is so it can be avoided. The only value in suffering is to know that it is to be avoided. But then again, why would you put somebody in a circumstance where there is danger and trauma that causes suffering that is to be avoided in the first place? Fight or flight. What are we running away from? What are we trying to fight? And why? The spirit of man is like a god who has been lobotomized, a consciousness made retarded by being treated like a child and forced to redo kindergarten for an eternity. Every time we receive our spiritual diploma, so to speak, they pull out that technology from the movie Men in Black, and that flash makes you forget everything, and then they put you back into the flesh and make you do it all over again. So, in essence, it is actually impossible for spirit to learn anything in this place. Because everything that we think that we learn in the flesh, we get the memory wipe and we soon forget. So it's actually impossible to learn here, let alone to say that there's any value in learning from a suffering that never should have occurred in the fucking first place. Whoever is responsible for the creation of this construct one day will be held accountable for the crime against us all. It's okay. You don't have to use your brain if you don't want to. In fact, I don't think you can. So let me use your brain for you. Never mind your brain. We're using my brain. I will think on your behalf, okay? So let's think about this. The orgasm is the most pleasurable thing known to man. Child rearing is the most painful thing known to man. Maybe it's because you couldn't have one without the other, and the pleasure is designed to allure you, not because nature wants you to be pleasured, but so that the pleasure of the orgasm can lead to the trouble with being born and the pain upon both mother and child. I figured it out so you don't have to. I figured it out. I'm so smart. To bite your tongue or to swallow a bullet is the only ultimatum in the suffering school for souls. To stay alive or to unalive? Now that is the question. Okay. Well, I guess we're all going to decide to stay alive, huh? What do we have to look forward to? We have to look forward to a body that at some point is going to expire in a slow and agonizing, painful way. Was that somewhere on the small print when we consented to come to a place like this? Did it say, yes, you could live healthy and happy up until the point of 70 years, and then you're going to develop Alzheimer's, and for the last 7 years, you're going to have the memory of a goldfish and the intelligence of a 7-year-old, and you're going to have your own family members wipe your ass? Huh. I don't remember. I guess we didn't read the fine print, huh? Or, yes, you're going to be born and it's going to be all fine and dandy up until you're about 35, and then you're going to develop this autoimmune disease because of genetics. Huh? Or you're going to have a stroke and you're going to have your diapers changed while you slowly rot away for the last 4 years of your life, and euthanasia isn't an option. Huh? I would not agree to that, even if it was a 1 in a million chance. But you know how often these things happen? They're commonplace. It's more likely, unfortunately, that when you kick the bucket, you're not going to die peacefully in your sleep. You're going to get some form of terminal illness that's going to be slow and painful, and it's going to last for several years. It happens all the time. Why would anybody agree to that? Nobody in their right mind would agree to that. Divinity would never enter a realm divorced of divinity. The primordial gnosis of our heart space is divine, and it has no business in a place like this. Why are we here then? Mistakes were made, and there too was foul play involved. We have to take some responsibility that we fucked up, and we know not how we fucked up, but we fucked up. But it's okay, because after this incarnation, I'm confident that I am going to return to the pleroma from whence I came. And if I don't, I would rather have an atheistic afterlife than to come back, even in the best case scenario of anything this world has to offer. Remember this one more time. Divinity would never choose to go into a realm divorced of all divinity. So, when people say you chose to come here so you can learn lessons, what can infinity itself be taught in an existence that is finite? Immortality has no business interacting with mortality. Non-corporeality has no business inside of corporeality. Our revolt is as ill-conceived as the world that provokes it. Revolt cannot have a meaning in a non-valid universe. To fold one's arms or to draw one's sword are equally vain gestures. That's very deep. Who here has become a hero of total sloth? No one folds his arms anymore. We are busier than the ants and the bees. Yet, if an ant, if a bee, by the miracle of an idea or some temptation of singularity, were to isolate herself in the ant-hill or the hive, and she contemplated from outside the spectacle of her labors, would she still persist in her pain? By all evidence, we are here in the world to do nothing. It is far too late for humanity to be released from the illusion of action. It is especially too late for it to be raised to the sanctity of sloth. Is there anything more vile than to say yes to the world? Yet, we keep multiplying that consent, that trivial repetition, that loyalty oath to life, denied only by everything in us that rejects vulgarity. We can live the way the others do and yet conceal a big no greater than the world itself. That is melancholy's infinity. I once listened to a Manly P. Hall lecture where he said that cows exist to serve the divine purpose of acting as a protein source for the nutrition of man, and they incarnate voluntarily to be slaughtered as their divine purpose. And I thought to myself, why don't you tell that to a fucking cow? Go to a cow at your nearest slaughterhouse who's living in cramped conditions where he can't even move, bound to be chewed up and shat out by some fat American, and say, you are living a divine purpose because you consented to be born as a cow by way of the universe so I can ingest you and shit you out. What's he going to say? Moo. Yeah, that's the kind of bullshit I'm talking about when people who are spiritualists try to ascribe divine purposes upon things. You can say there is meaning in the suffering of my life as a divine purpose if you are so ill-conceived as to do so. But whatever you do, you have no business telling me to find meaning in my suffering, because my suffering is my business, and I do not consent to my suffering, okay? If you want to consent to your suffering and say, I asked for it, it's all according to the universe, it's all okay. I don't think you're intelligent, I think you're stupid, but you're entitled to your stupidity. But what upsets me is when you say, there's a divine purpose after all, okay? Telling that to me is like telling that to the cow at the slaughterhouse. Don't put any type of a divine purpose upon people who suffer to their face. Because I do not consent. And honestly, you do not consent, whether you try to fool yourself into it or not. Because nobody wants to suffer. But if you say, I suffer, and it's all a part of a spiritual lesson, keep that shit to yourself. I think the meaning of life is a dopamine spike in the blood. That's what it seems to be. Because I went into a gas station, and I asked the woman behind the counter as I was ringing up my coffee, what is the meaning to life? And she said, I don't know, but if you buy one king-size Kit Kat, you get another one for only $1. And I said, huh, I guess that's the meaning. So, I did what she said, and we're going to see if we can find some meaning. This is meaning. Sweet on the tongue, but bitter in the belly. This is the closest thing to meaning that the world has to offer. A dopamine spike in the blood. You don't believe me? Think of it. What is the sex act? Dopamine in the blood. All of the food that's advertised to you, all of the alcohol. all of the drugs, all of the entertainment. Dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. When you try to find meaning and you look around, you just see a bunch of consumeristic advertisements that tell you to buy, whether it's a material object or whether it's something you ingest into your body because it provides dopamine. So when people try to say, well, there's meaning, and they say all of this transcendental nonsense like, well, the meaning is to be spiritual and serve the Lord. To be spiritual is to serve the Lord. Huh? Yeah, the same creator with this as his creation and we as his creatures that has brought us the history that we know to be the history of man up until this point for the past thousands of years. Gee, thanks. Yeah, let's go fucking praise him. Yeah? You know, a creator that has such a thing as a mosquito, which is responsible for 700,000 deaths per year, which is millions upon millions per decade. A little disgusting, obnoxious fuck that bites you, it hurts, it itches afterwards, and it exists for the sole purpose of sucking the blood of other organisms. The mosquito alone debunks any idea of benevolency of nature or of God. So if that's your meaning, I just assume enjoy my fucking Kit Kat.